Us to our speaker. So most months we have a speaker from out of town, but with November being Gratitude Month, we always have two of our home group members come up and share for about 25 minutes each. So I'm happy tonight to invite Hannah up as our first speaker.
Hi everybody, my name is Hannah Reese and I'm an alcoholic. My sobriety birthday is September 20th, 2022, and I am a member of the Came to Believe group. So I'm going to start this off with how our founders do it, what I was like, what happened, and what I am like now. Okay, to start off with, we're going to start with my childhood. So I was born in a little town called Tarboro. I was the first daughter and first granddaughter to my family. My mom took about 7 years to have me. She had fertility issues and she really wanted me. Also, I had a younger sister and two younger twin cousins. So I was kind of that kind of person who had a lot of pressure on my plate as the first grandchild and the first child on my mother's side of the family. As far as my family life, I had a mom and a dad. As far as that goes, till I was about 8 years old, my dad checked out of my life emotionally. He was there, but he was not emotionally present in our lives. He was more like a roommate. So there was that. As far as how I was in school, so I felt the kind of person, I was a very shy child. I had a very hard time expressing myself. I didn't have very many friends. And I feel like that kind of person who everyone else had the manual for life, and I was just sitting there and did not know what to do and what was going on and just felt absolutely lost. But I was actually a really excellent student. So I made really good grades. I was on the AB honor roll. I was a well-behaved child for the most part. I mean, obviously, all children misbehave from time to time. But I did, for the most part, behave pretty well. As far as my religious upbringings, I was raised Christian in a very fire, brimstone tradition. We were raised Southern Baptist. It was very fear-tactful as far as, like, be afraid, just really scared of God as far as being afraid I'm going to go to hell and that I'm doing everything wrong. And it didn't feel very loving. And I was very scared. So during that time, as far as my background goes with God, so by the time when I was in about middle school, I was placed into a Christian private school that was extremely strict. And at the time, I thought I was going to finally get a chance to get closer to God and to understand Him a lot better. But it actually really drew me away from it. And I really started to question things. And I didn't really like what was being told to me as far as that goes because, it was very sexist and very, fear, as far as the fear tactics as well, very conservative. And, when you start getting around that age of middle school, you're kind of rebellious, and, you're, starting to kind of, question things and have your own view of things. Like I said, for the most part, I was pretty well behaved, but I did around the time when I was about middle school, because of my low self-esteem, I did introduce myself to boys around that time. As far as we're getting to high school, and I didn't actually start drinking until I was about 18, 19 years old. I had graduated high school, and as far as the first drink goes, my mom, during that time, we kind of loosened up as far as rules going on with my grandparents and the strict rules with that, and she's like, hey, as long as you're in the house and you're safe with me, I'd rather you be here and drink than you to go out and get messed up somewhere. And as far as how I felt during that first drink, I mean, it was nice. I'll be honest with you, it was really nice, but it was nothing special that first time. And, I did drink from time to time, once in a blue moon during that time period. As far as when my drinking started to really start taking off was probably around 2020, during the pandemic. Everything started getting shut down, a lot more isolation going on. And, I got married during 2020. Very happy. Nothing wrong with that there. I want to go ahead and put that out there. That was a very happy thing. I hope so for him too. Well, he's stuck with me now anyway. Well, during that time, I ended up getting a manager position at one of the stores I worked at during that time. And it started to put a lot of extra stress on me during that time. And I started to pick up drinking a whole lot more. And during that time, the owner of the shop, we started doing events to bring in more money, to bring more people in. So we started having karaoke nights and jazz nights and that type of thing. And because I was the manager at the time, he wanted me to host the events, get up and kind of encourage people to come out and, and sing or do poetry at the time. And he would allow me to have a few drinks before loosening up. And during that time, something really started to click with me in my brain. And it was just this feels different. Out of nowhere, I felt so smart, pretty, confident. I was the life of the party. I was hot. Everybody was having fun with me, and we were laughing and cutting up. And we were just having a good time. And, for the most part, as far as public drinking, I didn't do a whole lot of it other than during events. So most of my drinking was actually in private by myself. And, it would start off, I would start just drinking during the weekends. I would just slide it off there and go, okay, we're just going to drink during the weekends. And we started doing that. Well, how social media and TV pictures and everything, and it was I started seeing more of hey, you can have a drink every day, so it started running into the whole week. Every day. Buying a bottle of wine every single day and passing out in my bed till, just passing out. And, I was just really stressed out. And I would just use it as an excuse to drink, whether it was because I was stressed out, I was happy, I was sad, I was bored, anytime I would. It was really sad that it got to a point where, it was just I had to drink during family events too. I would start pre-gaming beforehand, and then I would bring alcohol to the little parties we were at, and when they were off in another room, I would sneak some more and start drinking more. And, it's pretty sad when you have to start doing that. And it was just, and it got to a point with my drinking as far as having to do it every day that I had become a liar and a thief just to get what I needed for the day to get through. And it was tough. I was really depressed. I felt really alone. I would have everyone around me, and it felt like I was all by myself. It was just, and my husband started getting really concerned for me, and every so often he'd be like, hey, don't you think you have a problem? I think you're drinking alcoholically. And I'd be like, no, I'm fine. And I would just slide on and let it go by. And to kind of, what I'm going to do is I know some of y'all tell stories sometimes from your adventures, so I'm going to tell you one of mine. It's not as crazy as some of y'all's, but it was funny and not funny. You know what I mean. Well, there was one night, I took my baby sister and I, by the way, she is legal drinking age, just want to put that out there. I took my baby sister to the wine bar, and her and I started pre-gaming at the wine bar, and we were having a good time, and we were cutting up and giggling, and I was getting pretty messed up, and the drinks were getting kind of expensive, and I was like, I don't want to do this no more. Let's go home. We got loads of alcohol at home. Let's go home. We got beer, we got rum, we got wine there. Let's go home. So I probably shouldn't have been getting behind the wheel that night, but I did. We started driving home, and I was speeding as fast as I could, and we were laughing and cutting up, and I'm like, ha 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 ha, I'm so drunk right now, I hope the cops don't catch me, ha 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 ha. Ran right through the red light. I'm like, oh, look, I ran a red light. Kept going, so we got home, and before we started drinking, I decided I had to go use the restroom. Well, I'm sitting there trying to use the restroom, and I start to come sit up. Well, I didn't have very good balance, and I fell right into the bathtub with my pants off, and the shower curtain came down, and I'm going, help, 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 somebody get me. And my sister had to come pull me out of the bathtub. She had drinks too, so she was drunk and pulling me out of the bathtub, and just kept drinking more after that until passed out. But yeah, it's pretty humbling when you have to have someone pull you out of a bathtub with your pants down. But anyway, back to the story as far as how bad it was getting. It was getting to a point where, like, how depressed I was, that I was going into work hungover, and I was wearing my shirts and my pants from the day before, all sloppy. I didn't brush my teeth. I wouldn't brush my hair. I didn't really want to get out of bed. It was just, something had to give. And there was one night I had gotten really drunk, and I started really having suicidal thoughts. And I was just like, man, started kind of coming up with a plan in my head. And then I started getting this little voice in my head, and it was just like, hey, why don't we try to do something different? And I'd like to believe that was God saying that. So I said probably the first real, genuine prayer I've ever said before, and I said, hey, God, if you're real, can you help me? And then the idea of, maybe I need to go to the hospital. And I shook my husband and I said, hey, I think I need to go to the hospital. And it was like maybe around 2 a.m. He's like, hey, just wait a couple hours, let me just sleep just a little bit, and we're going to take you to the hospital. And we drove to the hospital, and we sat in the car, and my husband kind of took my hand, and he's like, he's just so upset. And he was just like, he's like this, I'm so upset right now. He's like, I have a wife who's drinking too much, she's depressed, she wants to kill herself. I am just, I don't know what to do with you. I am so sad about this. And he's like, guess what? When you get home, all the liquor and everything's gonna be locked up. You ain't getting any of it. I'm locking everything up. And I was just sitting there, and I was going, and I was like, yeah, right, I'm gonna find a way to do it anyway. Well, I get checked in to the hospital, and I get checked into the treatment center for the suicidal ideation and to get me together. And while I was there, I had a lot of time to think, because it was a very quiet kind of place. Treatment centers are not the most exciting things. It's basically like being a kid all over again. You're in a line, you have to wait for your meds, you're in little scrubs, there's a time for your meal. And, I was like, what? I think I do have a drinking problem. And I looked on the calendar there, and I saw there was an AA meeting for, I think it was that Friday night. And I was like, okay, you know what? I'm going to give it a listen. We're going to give it a go. And that Friday night, actually, 2 future home group members were there to tell the message. And his story really touched me, and a lot of the things he said really struck home with me, and were a lot of things that I did. And it really got to me, and I was just like, you know what? there's something different about him, maybe I want this too. As I get out of here, I'm going to give it a chance, see how it goes. So I got a little flyer for the schedule, and that Sunday or Monday I got checked out. And the day before the meeting, which was the day I got checked out of the hospital, I said I wasn't going to drink or anything. And, old habits kick in, that mentality kicks into your brain. I was like, you know what? I'm going to do some drinking. And I started getting a hidden bottle of wine I had in the fridge. And I had a couple of drinks of it, and I started getting absolutely sick. Physically, mentally, I was like, I don't like this. So I got up the next day, and that evening I made my way to the AA meeting. And I was I was feeling like crap. I was looking like crap. I was so shaky and nervous, and I was so afraid of how everything was going to go. But you know what? When I walked into that room, there was some smiling faces, laughter. I had people coming up to me and, greeting me and telling me how happy they were that I was here. And it was great. It made me feel good to know that. I was like, man. And then they started talking about the big book. And we were pulling it out that night, and I didn't have one, because it was my first meeting. And I was like, oh man, how am I going to scrounge the money to get this book? Well, one of the ladies in our group, she kindly bought me my first big book, which was so sweet and very thankful for. And during that same week, after the meeting, I had another sweet lady and gentleman invite me to a spiritual retreat they do during the month of September. So I was maybe, 3-4 days sober, and I was making my way to Medoc Mountain. And I was also a little bit scared then. I was excited, but I was also a little bit scared because there was a lot of people. But it was, it was really nice. There was a lot of really nice people. And it was a time that actually I got to get a little bit of understanding of what the program was about and the principles. And the gentleman was talking about the steps of Alcoholics Anonymous and what that was about. And during that time, I ended up getting a temporary sponsor from out of town. And we worked for just a little while. We worked through a couple of the steps together. And then eventually, nothing wrong with her and nothing wrong with me as far as working together. She was like, hey, I really think you need to find somebody who is in your home group, a strong woman with sobriety. There's no hard feelings. I'm like, no hard feelings with me either. And we decided to part ways. And I found a woman in the home group that I'm in that I had a sound sobriety. And I've been told that you try to look for somebody who has something that you want, and she was someone that I definitely wanted to do that because she's a very confident person. She holds her head very high, and she tells it like it is, and she's honest, and I like that about her, and I wanted to be a little bit more that way myself. So we started working through the steps, and I won't lie at first, a little bit of the God stuff. I was starting to come to the conclusion, there is a God, everything that I had been through, something was guiding my hand through all those moments. And I finally was able to be like, you know what? I can say God now. I believe in God now. I can turn that power over to God now. I was just so scared before. But, it's like I'm seeing all these people, and there's so much light and love in them. It's like, if that's what they have, then surely this higher power / God is loving too. And, that's what I want. So we worked through that, and we started working through probably every single step is important. I'm going to go ahead and put that out there because Mr. Page over here makes sure to tell us that every step has importance. Everything's important, and no step is better than the other. But one of the most meaningful steps for me was step 4 and step 5, was taking that chance to really look because I really, at the time, I really thought I was the one that had been screwed over, and I was really hurt. And I was like, man, and it gave me a chance to look at a situation and go, hey, you know what? I had a part in this too. I wasn't very nice either. I thought I was doing something really smart, and it wasn't. What I said to this person or what I did to this person wasn't very nice. And we worked through that, and it gave me time to, start making amends to these people as well. And, how I told you that my dad had walked out of my life as far as emotionally, and I had closed him off for a long time. I actually took a chance to really forgive my dad for his part in it, and I also asked his forgiveness for what I had done for closing him off, because everybody makes mistakes. And, in the big book, it talks about how, when we're forgiving people, that they're a sick person too, just like us. And I'm like, you know what? That's how I'm having to look at it. And even though my dad and I aren't best friends, but my dad and I are in a lot better shape now. I help him, he helps me. As far as my grandparents go with the strict upbringing, I was finally able to talk to them about my alcoholism and talk about God. And we ended up having a really good relationship. And I was able to have a sober Thanksgiving with my grandma and grandpa, and then a sober Christmas with my grandma. And during that time period of my first year of sobriety, I lost my granddad in December. And then around January through June, I started caretaking for my grandma. So I was able to do a living amends that way, was take care of my grandma. And around, May, June, she started going downhill. And I got to be of service for her by helping her with the hospice care. So I was there with her day and night, 24/7, taking care of her. And yes, it was very stressful and it was very sad, but it was also quite a blessing and something I'm very thankful for, because it was time I had with her. I was able to sing songs to her and pray with her, read the Bible to her. And it was just a moment that I won't have any regrets toward it. And that's really great that I don't have regrets towards that now. I got to put my grandma to rest as she knew that I was sober, I was responsible, and I took care of her. And that's very special that I was able to do that, because I wouldn't have been able to do that if I was still drinking. So I was very, very grateful for that. And recently, in the past couple months, in the month of September, I actually lost my best friend to cancer. She had lung cancer. She was 24. But you know what? I got to be sober that last year and spend more time with her and do things with her. And she knew that I had got myself right, which was wonderful. And even though we had a short time together, it was a wonderful time together, and I'm so glad that I was able to do that. It was great. And, with mending my relationship with the God aspect of things, I had, walking away from the church for a very long time, and I found a very loving church that was very accepting and kind and very supportive. And I actually was able to, take them to the side and let them know about what was, about Alcoholics Anonymous and what had done for me. And if they ever needed anybody, for a source, that they could do that, use me as a source to help somebody else. And I haven't had that come up yet, but if it does, I will definitely take up that offer and help them as best as I can. And they actually came in September when I had my anniversary, and they came to support me, which was really great. So they got to see me pick up my 1-year medallion. And I have really great friends. I have such a great home group. I have a great sobriety line with wonderful women who have such a long line of sobriety, steady sobriety. And it's amazing. Life is really good. It could be definitely overwhelming, and there's been a lot of stuff going on with me right now. But I have such a strong, loving support group that even when the days when they just feel like, really overwhelming, you know what, I have some wonderful people to, I can talk to God about it, I can go to Him about it, and I also have some lovely people, if I need some advice, I could call my sponsor and she will help me the best she can, and she's honest about it, but she's very patient with me, and I'm very thankful for that. And then, it's really great, because like tonight, after all this is over, we all get together and we eat together, and that's such a wonderful thing to have such a group of people that I can do that with now. Sobriety is such a wonderful gift, and it's not lonely, because when you're drinking, you think you're going to have all these friends and all this fun stuff to do, but honestly, it's better on the other side. It's so much better on the other side. There's so much to look forward to, and it's such a gift. And you think you're losing so much by taking alcohol out, and it may feel that way at first. It may feel so overwhelming, like you're breaking up with a toxic ex-boyfriend or ex-husband. But you know what? And you look back and you go, you know what? Life is so much better. I have so much more. If taking away alcohol and I gain all this, it's worth it. And, if I just keep it one day at a time, every day's, it's an absolute blessing. Thank you.
Thank you, Hannah. That was powerful. So next we're going to hear from Josh.
Thank you, Lawrence. All right, my name is Josh Turner, and I'm an alcoholic.
Hey, Josh.
Sobriety date is June 3rd, 2016, and this is my home group. Thank you, Hannah. That was really good. I don't really know how to follow that, to be honest. That was really, really good. It being gratitude and stuff, I was kind of thinking Hannah touched on it a little bit. Was what a good group of people that she came into whenever she came into AA, and I think that's one of the things I'm most grateful for, is that AA has always been here, and it's always been accepting. Didn't really know what to say tonight because, to be perfectly honest, I didn't think I was going to be speaking. That's why I'm in a hoodie. I didn't shave. I really wasn't even ready for any of this. But I don't know. I'm going to kind of do like Hannah and just kind of give a story of what it was like, what it is, and how it's like now. Basically, for me, like I was saying, I came into such a good group of people with AA and stuff, and to be perfectly honest, I was kind of a nuisance around AA for years. My sobriety date's 2016, but I first got introduced to AA in 1999 is when I first came into AA. I was just before my 18th birthday, and I stayed sober a couple of years, but after that I kind of bounced in and out of AA. Sometimes I was serious about getting sober, sometimes I was just here, I don't know why I was here, but AA never kicked me out. AA never scolded me or anything like that. They were always here with open arms, and that's something I'll always be grateful for. Kind of to backtrack, I relate a lot to what Hannah was talking about. My upbringing was sort of similar. I wasn't raised in like a strict background, but I had the same experiences in life. I had a good home. I was raised in a Christian background. I had a mom and dad who are still married today. They've been married 40 plus years now, and just a really good upbringing. Much like Hannah, I was also a good student growing up, AB honor roll. I played sports. I had lots of friends. I don't try to think back on it. I don't think it's kind of like, like a crazy person don't know that they're crazy sometimes. I don't think I had the issues that I had, until I started drinking. Once I took that first drink, it, opened my eyes up to everything, and then I think I realized everything I was missing in life. Just growing up, I was, like a lot of other people, I was full of fear. I was always very anxious. There's, I don't know, it was just things kind of like Hannah was talking about. I feel like there was like a book that everybody was giving that I didn't have, and there's little things that pop up now as I stay sober more that I almost forget all about. I got a son who's autistic and stuff like that, and we put him into speech therapy, and I had totally forgot whenever I was like in 2nd and 3rd grade. I used to have to go, I had a real bad stuttering problem, so I had to go I got pulled out of class to go to just speech therapy in school, and I had forgotten all about it till we were getting Nolan in there, and I was talking to my mom about it, and it's just crazy how some of them things happen. And like looking back on it, I remember how it kind of made me feel like, I wouldn't say less than or anything, but it just kind of, I remember how embarrassing it was in school whenever I would get pulled out and I'd have to go to that little thing, and it was like once or twice a week, and then I'd go back and do whatever. But either way, I grew up, I mean, not in an alcoholic home. Neither one of my parents really drank. My mom will drink a glass of wine here and there. My dad hardly ever drinks. They're kind of the people, once they start to feel it, they stop, which I never understood, but that's kind of how they were. And so long story short, once I got a little older, kind of like Hannah, I think I was in 8th grade, and that's whenever I took my first drink. We got a guy that got us a bottle of Wild Irish Rose, and I had never drank before. I didn't know what to get. It was just me and a couple of friends. We just gave a dude outside of a BP gas station in Kinley some money, and he went in there and he got us some stuff and brought us back some beer and brought us back some Wild Irish Rose. And I remember drinking some of that Wild Irish Rose that night, and I don't even really remember much about that night. I know I got really drunk, got sick, and I remember waking up the next morning, and I was supposed to be home, and I got home late. I just remember waking up that next morning, little pieces I remembered of how I felt, and I just remember, man, the next time I get a chance to drink again, I'm going to take advantage of it, and I'm going to do it. And the very next time I did, and let's think, I was in 8th grade when I took my first drink, and I came into AA, like I said, in 99. So I think in about a 4-year time, I went from being a straight A honor roll student, playing sports and all that stuff, to having 2 felonies and 6 misdemeanors. I had been kicked out of school. I had been sent to the Duke Addictions program. I had been sent to a psychiatrist by my parents. I'd been sent to 2 outpatient centers in 11th grade. It was obvious I had a problem to other people, but it was never obvious to me that I had a problem. But I just turned into a totally different person once I started drinking. I went at it hard and fast. Had a bad habit of stealing things whenever I liked to drink. I didn't like having a job. I didn't like working for anything, so I just felt like the best thing to do was just to take what other people had and use that money to get what I wanted, and that's pretty much what I did. And I had racked up a lot of charges and a lot of other issues and stuff like that, and I got introduced to AA through a treatment center in Charlotte that I got sent to. It was a place called the Willows and Amethyst, and I got sent there, and I was supposed to stay there for about 30 days, and I ended up staying for, I think it was a little over 3 months. They kept me there, and they said I was still in the program, which was just basically saying I was just giving them the answers they wanted, and that's what I was doing. But I thought that's what you're supposed to do, give them the answers they wanted. But through there, I got introduced to Alcoholics Anonymous, and that was in 1999. And I promised there that I would go to a meeting whenever I left, and I did do that. I left there, and I went home. I was born and raised in Kinley, which is in Johnston County. And so I went to a meeting in Wilson, which was a principal's group. It was a Saturday night speaker meeting. And that was the first outside AA meeting that I had ever went to. I got there, and I got plugged into a great group of people, and I got sober for about 3.5 years. So those 4 years that I told you where I went from being almost a straight A student to where I was pretty much a high school dropout. That same 3.5 years from being an Alcoholics Anonymous, I went from that to being into Campbell University, where I got scholarships. I had rebuilt relationships with my family. I had a lot of stuff going for me. I had gone through the steps. I was sponsoring people. I was speaking at meetings. I know I'm kind of jumping a lot, but I don't have time to go through everything. But I was doing a lot of good stuff in Alcoholics Anonymous. But the one thing I really didn't do is I never really developed that relationship with God. You know, I was doing a lot of the busybody stuff, but I really hadn't developed that relationship with God. And so when I was down there at Campbell, there came a time, I always heard in AA before I went back out there was going to be a time where it was going to be nothing between me and the next drink other than that relationship with God that I had, and that's what happened. And I didn't have that relationship with God, ended up drinking again. And it wasn't out of the blue. Like, that big book talks about resting on your laurels and stuff like that. Like, looking back on it now, I can definitely pinpoint there's things that I stopped doing in Alcoholics Anonymous that led me to drinking again. One was I left my home group when I was going down to school, and I never really did join and take part of another home group. That was one thing. Another thing is I got too busy to keep sponsoring some people that I was sponsoring, you know, and it was just little things that just added up. And in about 2003, I drank again. And I remember before I went back out drinking, or right whenever I started drinking again, I was like, as soon as I get in any trouble, or if this looks like it's going to be an issue at all, I'll just jump right back into AA, get sober, get everything back in line, and I'll be good. And of course, that didn't happen. That was 2003, and like I said, my sobriety date was 2016, so I mean, it took me 13 years to crawl back into Alcoholics Anonymous. And I went through a lot to get back in here. You'd think it would be easy, but it definitely was much harder this time getting into AA. So 2003, I went back out and drank again. I picked up right where I left off. My favorite thing I used to love screwdrivers, the vodka and orange juice. That was like my go-to, either that or Coke and rum. But I was like on a screwdriver kick when I first started going back drinking around 2003, 2004. I remember driving around one night, drinking and driving. And I rode by my house, and I was like, my parents were never accepting of my drinking, and especially after I got sober, and they were never cool with my drinking, but they got reasons to not be cool with my drinking, was because I come home and I tear stuff up and I steal from them and do stupid things. So, I mean, it's understandable, but I remember driving by my house one night, and I'm like, I should just go home, but instead I just rode around a couple miles around the house so I could mix me another drink and drink it before I get home. And so I remember I'm like, I think I was fixing me a screwdriver, like driving like 55, 60 miles per hour in the car. And I'm like driving, and it's like I'm not paying attention to the road, and there's an S-turn coming up, and I remember I look up and I turn the car, and the back wheel starts skidding. And I'm starting to do that kind of hop sideways, and next thing I know, I come to, and there's blood and everything all over my shirt. I got a big gash in my head, a gash across my nose, all this stuff, and I kind of come to for a second, and I start nailing the gas pedal so I can get out of there. I'm not going anywhere. All the wheels are off the axle. And then I hear a front door open, and I had taken off the front porch of this dude's house, and I was just sitting like 5 feet from his front door, and he kind of was an old country dude. He just got to come out, and he was just like, yeah, just turn the car off. He was like, you're not going nowhere. And so he had called the cops, and that's where I got my first DUI. The crazy thing is that my parents had no idea that I even started drinking again. They thought I was still sober in AA, and I remember the look on my mom's face that night, like, she was so disappointed in me, I guess you could say. But that was the first DUI I got, and I got another one a little while after that. And I don't know how the best way to explain my drinking real short, but it would just be that I always kind of pictured in my mind that I would be able to drink like other people. I don't know if I really wanted to be like a normal person drinking, but I always just wanted to be able to drink how I wanted to and have that feeling, but I just didn't want the consequences. And what started happening later on in my drinking is every single time I touched a drink, it never went well. I never got drunk enough like I wanted to, or I always overshot the mark and got sick or blacked out, or I always did something stupid. You know, I ended up getting married. I got up with my wife in 2010. We got married a couple years later. And she knew of my drinking whenever we first got sober. I think I was in AA trying to get sober when I first met her. But she had been warned about my drinking from my mom and my dad. But I still drank with her, and I just treated her very badly. I'll just put it that way. I was never physically abusive or anything like that, but I was very emotionally abusive. I was very angry. I was always very bitter, I think, about the way my life had turned out. I just had tons of resentments. I was resentful about people I went to school with, all the stuff that they had in life. I thought it was just given to them. I was mad about that. You know, I never went until I came into AA that I learned, you know, those people probably worked for what they had. It wasn't just given to them, you know, that they worked for it. But I didn't want to see that. But I was just full of resentment. I was just always angry. And I was always drinking. And my wife was never fine with my drinking, I guess you could say. Well, she tried to put up with it, but it was like I'm an alcoholic. Like I said, I couldn't drink the way I wanted to drink. And I don't know, being Thanksgiving, I was thinking back on the last Thanksgiving when I was drinking about how just miserable I was because my family's not big drinkers, and so I couldn't just go over there and start drinking. And I remember the whole time I'm over here just miserable, just ready to leave so I could go home and drink, and just like looking back on it compared to how it is now with my family and stuff, it's just like, I don't know, just how different it is. It just kind of, I don't know, it's just crazy when I look back on it. But either way, long story short, I ended up coming back to Alcoholics Anonymous. You know, me and my wife, we were going through real bad times. We were pretty much living in the same house. We were pretty much like roommates. We weren't really talking. She was done with my drinking. It got to a point where my wife was even going to Al-Anon meetings and not even telling me about it. And I remember being so mad about that. And I was like, how dare you go to some Al-Anon meetings? Like, what is this? Either way, I was so mad about it. But either way, I got back into Alcoholics Anonymous, and the crazy thing is that I had gotten in so much trouble and been through so many worse things, but it came around Labor Day weekend where I pretty much hit my bottom in 2016, and it wasn't anything out of the ordinary that happened. It was just something clicked in my head finally after all those years that it was just never going to get any better. It's like this was all I had to look forward to. And that seed had been planted in Alcoholics Anonymous years ago. And so I came back to Alcoholics Anonymous, and I got a sponsor, and I got a home group like Hannah had talked about, and I got that feeling where everybody was just very loving and caring. And so I started my journey back getting sober again, you know, and I went through the steps with a sponsor. You know, we did that. I didn't have to spend much time on that first step. You know, I pretty much knew I was an alcoholic. Everybody around me knew I was an alcoholic, so we didn't belabor that point. But the big thing for me was doing that second and third step and then getting right into action, because that was always my deal. I would come into AA, I would hang around that first and second step for a couple months, and then I would start thinking in my head, maybe I overreacted. Maybe I had a bad go of it for a couple weeks. You know, I could probably go back out and drink again. And so this time it was different. I wrote a fourth and fifth step, or I wrote a fourth step and did a fifth step. And I think my sobriety really started changing for me is right around step 6 and 7, I think. And that's, I did that fifth step. But it was, after doing that fifth step, it was kind of like so many things were kind of shown to me of the person I really was. You know, I like in the big book where it talks about taking that inventory, but it talks about taking just like, I forget how it says it, but it's basically talking about like a shop or something. You know, you take like an honest inventory of your assets and liabilities and stuff like that. You just look at what it is, and that's what it was when I did that fifth step. Was it's in black and white, you know, and I saw myself for what it really was. And so I did that step 6 and 7, you know, and praying and stuff like that, and I started making amends to people. And so it'd be in gratitude. I think the main thing, I guess, to talk about would be the things that I have in my life today as a direct result of working the steps and developing a relationship with God. Like I said, the first time I got sober, I didn't really ever have much of a relationship with God, and this time I think I definitely do. I don't know what it is. I don't have like the biggest, you know, I don't go to church today still. Not a religious person or anything, but I do know for a fact that there's something out there that kept me alive. When I look back at my life and see all the things that happened, there's some reason that I'm still here. You know, most people never get a shot at AA. Most people only get maybe once, maybe 2 at the most, but the fact that it's a little unique for me to still be able to be sober in Alcoholics Anonymous. Most people don't get that chance, and I definitely am grateful for that. But life today as a result of working the steps is great. You know, I had a Thanksgiving yesterday with my family. I'm still married to Amanda, my wife. We're still together. We have 2 kids now. You know, I got a 6-year-old and a 1.5-year-old, and they're completely awesome. I'm able to be a dad today. I'm able to be a son and a brother, you know. Sorry. I'm able to take part in people's lives, which is completely different, you know. I'm sort of so used to just being around, you know, and now to actually be a part of it is a great thing, you know. Just like today, I mean, I didn't do anything special today. It was just pretty much hang out all day. And my kids were just running around. I'm just able to hang out, be a dad to my kids, you know, be a husband to my wife, and just be present. That's kind of, I think, all they wanted the whole time. It was just for me to be mentally there instead of checked out all the time, you know. And AA's given me that, you know. AA's given me a completely different life today. It's given me, you know, I have a job now that I excel at, you know. It's cause, not that I'm all of a sudden become a great worker, it's just because now I go into work on time. I volunteer for things. I volunteer to learn new skills there, you know, and I take it and I run with it, you know, and that's been a blessing. You know? I have a great relationship with my parents today, you know. We're going over, we had my wife's family over at my house yesterday. Tomorrow we're going to go to my parents' house, you know, and I'm going to go over and not be miserable. You know, I know I'm going to go over and have a good time, you know, and just do whatever, you know. And he's just given me a ton of stuff, you know. I don't, you know, one of the basic things he's given me is I don't even think about alcohol today. I don't sit here and worry about, am I going to, you know, my wife doesn't worry about where I'm at, you know. She knows on Tuesday and Fridays I'm going to be at my homeroom. She doesn't have just, she's got zero reservation I'm going to go and get drunk tonight because she's seen what Alcoholics Anonymous has done in my life and the way that I've tried to carry it into the home and stuff like that. She's not worried about that, you know, and I'm not worried about it today, you know. AA's given me so much, you know, there's so much for me to lose today compared to what I had. You know, there was a time before I got, I mean, I can't spend too much time talking about drinking, but there was a time whenever I was drinking where I was like, I didn't really care if I was to just somebody T-bone me, take me out. I mean, it just didn't really matter to me. I didn't, you know, I was never suicidal, but I was just never, I just had no life. I just didn't really care about anything. I didn't care about myself, didn't care about the people around me. I just didn't care about anything. And now I do. You know, now I've got too much to lose. I don't really know what else to say. Hannah did a really good job explaining all the stuff that I kind of want to say, to be honest. You know, just like her, I mean, I think I would have shortchanged myself coming back into AA this time. You know, this time I didn't really come into AA with much expectations, you know, as many times as I've kind of been in and out with it. I didn't really know what to expect this time, you know. I just knew something had to change in my life. I just knew that I couldn't keep on, I want to say keep on drinking, but I just couldn't keep on living the way I was living. You know, it was just there was nothing to it. And now, through AA, not only am I sober, but like I have a purpose in life. You know, when I wake up in the morning, I'm happy to wake up. I'm not worried about what I did the night before or anything like that. When I go to bed at night, I have a clear conscience and I'm not worried about or having regrets of something I did that day, you know. And it's just it's a crazy feeling, you know. It's I don't know if normal people have that feeling or not, but I just know I'm glad that I'm an alcoholic because it introduced me to this way of life, which I'm trying to do. And I'm still trying to build on, because I'm still trying to develop that relationship with God. I'm still trying to make it stronger, but it's there. And so I pray every morning to help keep me sober. I pray every night, and I thank God for keeping me sober. And so it's about the best I can do. I'm about out of time, so thank you.